today.
Yes, we are indeed. Yeah.
So Gary and I are wondering, if you're using the dating apps, if you have any idea how to chat or how to get another person chatting, because often I hear, I'd say more men, is a little higher. The men say, nobody wants to have a conversation. Nobody answers back. So Barry and I are
Yeah.
going to address that today.
Indeed, we are.
So you're watching us on the newsstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
I was just telling Barry that one of my male clients was chatting, texting through one of the dating apps with a woman, and she sounded really interesting. And so they decided to talk on the phone, and the way she phrased things was a little different. And she fessed up and said she'd been using ChatGPT to come up with the things to tell him.
Yeah.
It was cute, and it was nice that she fessed up. And Barry and I will say, sure, look at for ideas, but don't copy it exactly, because then you need to use your own voice, right?
The challenge is basically, and that's one of the things that we can talk about as a sidebar on this, is that the AI tools that are showing up nowadays, even with fat people using chat. I mean, I've seen people using AI pictures in their profiles, and like basically, if I see someone do that, I immediately just swipe left on them. I'm not interested at all, because authenticity is part of my qualities. And so when people don't use their true voice, either in their pictures, their profile write up, or even in their chatting, that's a no-go for me. And I think that should be really no-go for everybody, because the reality is the person you want to be in a relationship with, if you are using the dating apps for meeting someone to be in a relationship with, because some people don't do that, if you are doing that, then don't you want to be connected with somebody right from the get-go who's being honest, transparent, vulnerable, truthful, authentic, real, versus AI supported,
Boy, that's such a good point. And I like that you have the caveat if you really are looking for a real relationship, because we don't assume everybody out on the apps is. Some people are
Right.
just looking for casual or for a hookup or just for a friend. Have at it. And it might be kind of fascinating to use ChatGPT for that. And truly, what we both know personally and professionally is you want to hear who the person really is. Because if they're not your person, you will know. And if they are your person, you will know. And you won't know if they're not being who they normally are. And yes, you want to put your best foot forward, which is why you can get some suggestions. The suggestions I'd say is, as we did, it could be coming up, that we're going to talk about good questions to ask on a first date, that you can look for some suggestions and then frame it using your own words, the way that you normally talk. Don't use the dialogue, because if it's not how you speak, it'll feel stilted and the other person will go, what? Because it will feel really inauthentic.
I just had a rather silly thought for a moment there. It's like, what if two people get on the dating app, start chatting, and they both use ChatGPT to connect to each other? The ChatGPTs will fall in love with each other, but the people have no clue what's going on. And
they're not really falling in love with the person who the other person really is.
Exactly. Which is funny, but also that's the challenge also. And actually, let me sidebar that slightly again, because the thing is, so many people unfortunately don't tell the truth on the dating apps too, where it's simply things like they lie about their age and say, I don't know how it happened. Like, you do know what happened. Or they lie about the height or the success, whatever those things are. ChatGPT is in the same bucket, basically, because it's making things up. If you're really being authentic on the dating apps, first rule is tell the truth, in my book. So on your profile, do that as well as when you're chatting. So an effective way of chatting is to be honest, because the truth is, if they don't want to be with you, the sooner you find out, the better. So being honest is a good way of unearthing that.
So we've now talked about you're going to tell the truth. And I tell people, if it comes up, if we need to have that conversation, everything that comes out of my mouth will be the truth. I just might not tell you the whole story. And I'm going to tell you that I'm not going to tell you the whole story, because it's not time to tell you a whole story. And I want to find out, and don't you want to find out, am I a safe person to tell the whole story to? But I will always tell you the whole truth about the part that I'm going to tell you. And I think that that's fine. So I'm not going to lie, because lying's really bad when you're dating. And telling the truth is really important. The other thing I tell my clients and people in my personal life, I will tell you the truth in the nicest way possible. I'm really
Yep.
good at framing things. It's how I was born. So you'll know that I will generally deliver it if I'm going to tell you some truth that I think about you, that I'm going to do it in the nicest way possible. And hopefully it's a really positive truth. But if it's not going to be positive, I will make it as nice as I can, and I still will tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's the challenge, because it is interesting, because as we probably, I think everybody watching this knows, is the dating apps, it's easy to get ghosted. And oftentimes the ghosting isn't happening because they're oblivious. It's oftentimes because the person doesn't know how to communicate with you what they don't like about you or want to say no to. So what you're saying is rare in a sense, because most people don't take the time to say to somebody, this doesn't work for me. They just ghost them, done. Just drop and forget about it. So unfortunately, that's I won't say it's the coward's way out. Well, I just did. But but it is kind of the what's the word? The unchivalrous way of doing it. Because it's like, at least say, and this is the thing. It is tempting someone to say, you know what, I'm interested in them, I'll just swipe them off, not deal with them. Well, it can be nice to simply say, this isn't going to work, or I'm not interested, or what I'm looking for is not quite the same. Just be honest. Because first of all, you'll be in integrity. And secondly, they may learn something from what you said that'll help them move forward as well.
Mm-hmm. Really important. So the biggest complaint I hear is somebody says hi, the other person says hi, the other person says, how's your day? And it was fine. How was yours? And if you were going to sit across the table from somebody for the very first time, maybe your conversation would start out that way. And pretty fast, you'd ask a question or tell them something about you. So people are frustrated with the scammers, because I tell you, every scammer wants to know how I slept. I feel so cared about that they all did I sleep well last night? I'm like, they really care. How sweet of them. Such a telltale thing that I will make a point of asking them a question about what was the most fun thing you did this week, or what's some fun thing that you're planning to do? What was the most interesting thing you've learned in the last month? What's the most challenging thing about, if you're doing a career thing still, not often at my age, but still some, since I'm still working. And then if they don't want to play, they're not my person, because we all know I want to have a back and forth conversation. So that's okay. It's a really good way to eliminate them. So I don't take it personally if they can't have a conversation back and forth. Now, I will say there are people who like texts more and like phone calls more. I actually really am a phone call person. So I don't play that way for very long. I'll say, gosh, I'd really like to hear your voice. Could we get on the phone? And here's my Google Voice number. So until then, though, I want to see, will they answer a question? I know that there's lots of men that don't know to ask the question, so I will answer the same. Let me tell you my answer to that. What do you think about that? Do you have any input? And then that way I'm asking them a question again. So the person who is more generated by having a conversation, the person who's more comfortable doing this, the person that's more practiced, I'm sorry, you're going to do the heavy lifting. And if you still want to keep using the apps, then go ahead and do more of the asking, and then just wait if they're going to answer back or not.
Yeah, that's one thing, is once you ask a question, let it sit so they can answer. If you're desperate, they'll know it because you're asking the question right after the second one, and the first one, and the third one, and the fourth one. It's like they haven't a chance to answer yet. And if they've been away from their phone the whole day and you've answered 4 questions, their opinion of you might go down a little bit. That's one thing. The second piece is mentioning about getting off the apps and talking. More and more of the apps, not all of them, but more and more of the apps allow you to go beyond just typing. You actually can call through the app. You can even do video chats through the app. And we've said this before in previous conversations about how, for safety sakes, particularly for women who just want to take care of themselves, to do a video call through the app is maybe the best way to discover the person you're talking to is really the person you're talking to before you give out any personal information. So, yes, you can stay inside the app. And I agree with you absolutely, to get off the typing and into the talking, at least, whether it's inside the app or on a Google Voice or other sort of phone call, where you can talk to the person, because you want to hear the voice quality. Because as we've said before, or I've certainly said before in talking, how the way we receive information, typing something out in text is like less than 1% of communication. because when you see somebody's face, you see the facial expression, you hear the tone of voice, the tempo, the timbre, all these different things about the person that you would not get from a typed message. So getting into voice conversation at least is the thing you want to do as soon as you can with somebody you're interested in, just to find if it's going to be a match or a deal breaker more quickly.
Oh, so important, because it is the hardest thing about texting is that you don't hear the tone and can misunderstand the tone. And a misunderstanding can be very bad, especially if it is a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
So the other thing I've learned to do with chatting through the apps is, gosh, this is what I thought you said. Is that what you meant? If they did, good to know, because yeah, no, thank you. And sometimes they're like, oh no, or even it was really a mistype and they didn't catch it. You know, if you're using your voice sometimes and you don't go back and look, that can be a big problem. So don't just assume, even though it's easy to do that, that when somebody says something, if they meant it the way, if it's bad, that you're taking it, because sometimes it just isn't. I've learned sometimes it just isn't.
Yeah. I'll leave that one there where it is.
Especially as women, we're kind of sensitive to a lot of things, and we can go have a very big reaction to something that really, that wasn't your intent, even though that was the impact. So I just suggest verify before you get upset.
It's funny how we, well, not funny, it's unfortunate how we tend to misconstrue things so quickly and easily. We're getting a whole story in our head about something that was totally not communicated. So to have the deference or the willingness to go, you know what, let me just check to see what they said is what I think they said. So you don't go off that tangent and, you know, create a whole story that isn't real. So again, the texting is a good thing to communicate logistically. I've said this again, I'll say it now. But texting is a great thing to communicate data points. You know, call at this time, this is my phone number, let's talk then, sort of thing, rather than saying how I feel, how I think you are, and that sort of thing. Because again, as you said, the opportunity to misconstrue and to misunderstand is very high when it's text only. So with a phone call, at least, it can be, first of all, with a phone call, you can hear what somebody means by what they say, by the inflections and everything else. But secondly, if you don't, you can get it qualified really easily in a phone call, which is much harder to do with type. So if you're going to chat in the apps, chat voice to voice rather than finger to finger sort of thing, typing, you know.
Finger to finger. I love that.
Yeah, it came a bit weird.
It's really quite amazing how, for me, especially because I'm such a voice person, sometimes the phone call can really solidify the yes or the no. And it's more of a way of really deciding way beyond the texting, because there's really only so much you can find out about, can you really have a conversation? Because that's really the point of having a phone call is, can you have a conversation? Can you work out how to go back and forth? Do you like the tone or the timbre of their voice? Because that can be a problem. What if you don't? I mean, that could be a problem if you don't know ahead of time and you get all excited with all your texting information that you're getting. So that's the other thing, is to say, you know, if voice is important to you, do they use their voice for other things? It's interesting. I've been chatting with this guy who he also gives talks and has a YouTube channel and stuff. And we tried to send the links to each other, and it turns out you can't do that. It was really quite frustrating. So I said, well, now we have to meet, because then I'll let you see my personal stuff, but you could send me yours. But it was funny because it was so exciting to get to see what somebody else was doing. But that's the other frustrating thing, that now you've moved to phone and you still can't do that part. So then it's, but having a phone conversation will, if it's yes, then of course I will meet them in person.
Yeah. I mean, it really is about having like walls around the castle, so to speak. So what you're doing is you have all the walls up, and then slowly let each one down in turn as they're qualified, as they earn that right, as you feel more trusting. And yes, you can make mistakes by letting down too many walls too quickly. But the idea of having some level of, let's say password, but like some sort of security clearance that the person has to get before they go to the next level, it's like, when you really think about it, for most people, is we're not very good at protecting our hearts and really making that sacred. And you can use the apps as a way of making it sacred by having that incremental step-by-step process for somebody to approach you, so you don't give away the farm so easily, so to speak, that you do in fact have such self-regard. They keep your standards high, so when somebody meets you, they earn the right to meet you. And that's a good way of doing relationship, period. So use the dating apps for that purpose.
So there we've talked about the thing is, but past, what do they need to do or say for them to be a 1 and a 2 and a 3, and how much of that happens through the app, and how much happens on a phone call, and how much happens in person. Because the latest thing I've been talking about is, because most of my calls are on the phone and not even Zoom, I say, picture that I've got my palms together, and we start liking them, we start getting excited about them, the emotion gets increasing, and we keep looking over here. And the thing I know for sure is this hand is now moving just as much, whatever this is moved, and this is how much vulnerability you have. This is how much they can hurt you. This is how awful it's going to be if they leave. So you have to keep paying attention of, do I know enough over here that I've now made it okay over here? Because my final part of that story is, by the time I fell in love with my husband, my right arm was completely out here, or my left arm. And then my right arm was available for a whole bunch of hurt, which happened when he died. And I now can say to this day, it was worth it. It was worth the amount of hurt that I experienced when he died because of the amount of love I had. Yeah. And I'm the pokey person, everybody that listens at all knows. So I kept verifying. I kept watching both of my hands. But too often we're just going, oh, but it's so fun and I really like him. And we go, how come that hurts so bad? I'm so surprised. It shouldn't hurt that. Because it's equal every time. I don't care who you are, whether you're paying attention or not. So think about that as you're doing the verifying. Picture your hands.
Basically, yeah. And it's such a key, because I know this is the case, so some of my clients been through this, is there's almost, and I've got to be careful I say this, but no, it's desperation for love. There's seeking, they want to have it, they need it. And the problem is when they do it from that place, the desperation overrides the discernment and overrides the validation to verify that what they're really going for is what they're going to get. And chatting the apps we talk about, and this is the title of this episode, but the reality is chatting the apps is often the first step. It's often the first move in, because it's the fact that you're chatting out because you both now like each other. So you've crossed the first hurdle. But that's it. You've just seen a few small pictures, postage stamp sized pictures perhaps. And you've read something that they wrote, and maybe their location is pretty good, and you like the information about them, so now you reach out to them. That's all you've got so far. So to be hyper invested at that point, thinking you're being in love with the person, you can have kids with them, and you're going to raise a family with them, you jump in the gun. So that what you're saying is so true about incrementally increasing the desire, the attachment, the investment, but do it one step at a time and match the reality of what you're going through, rather than making up stories about it before you can get there.
So we'll be back to thinking about desperate and lonely. If you're desperate and lonely, we need to talk to you before that. Don't get on the apps. Don't be dating if you're feeling desperate and lonely. And if you'd like to talk to Barry or I, this is the way you would do it if you're feeling desperate or lonely, or you're wondering about chatting on the apps. So the best way to get a hold of me is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. Scroll to the middle of the page. There's a What's Holding You Back from Love questionnaire. 10 brief questions about where you are now and where you'd like to be. It'll give you access to my online calendar, and you can schedule a complimentary conversation with me at your convenience. You can also send me a personal private email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And how do they reach you, Barry?
Similarly to that, I have a website, and my name, though, is different from Perfect Catch. It's BarrySelby.com. To be transparent. So you go to BarrySelby.com. Well, just clarifying. At the top of the screen, because I have 3 options on the homepage, but at the top of the screen, there's a button that says Let's Chat. And if you click on that, similar to Christine, I also have a way for you to reach me, so you can get on my calendar and also fill out a form before we get there, so we can have a conversation and see where you are and where you want to go. It's a gift from me to you. Definitely set to do that, so you can find out how to get the next steps and what maybe work for you best to working with me. You can also drop me an email at barry@barryselby.com if you want to reach out to me that way, and I'll tell you about the rest of it at the end of the show.
So we're off to a commercial for our wonderful station that broadcasts our show, and we'll be right back to talk more about effective ways to chat on the apps.
Mm-hmm.
we're back with Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. And today we're talking about effective ways to chat on the apps and also some ineffective ways, because we have to talk about that.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about miscommunicating, and we've talked about maybe some conversation starters as well as conversation keep goingers. I'll just try to figure out a word to say for that. That's the one I'm going to use.
Okay.
Because it is a really good way to get started. It's a good way to warm somebody up. It's a good way to practice. You know, we were talking about ChatGPT in the beginning. You could have some fun questions to ask in the beginning that not too deep, but you know, it's Monday. What did you do over the weekend? How was your?
What's going on? That's weird.
And turn all of your purchases into extraordinary.
I'm not sure what's going on. I have no idea.
And get access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. Open up the world.
I have no idea. You know,
I don't have anything else open on my computer. Oh yeah, it's
okay. Strange.
Dating interruptus. Conversation.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. So you could look up some conversation starters. So I was saying, if it's Monday and you want to say, this is what, so don't just ask what they did over the weekend. Say, this is what I did over the weekend. What did you do over the weekend? I like it that way because it feels warm and inviting, and it feels like, oh, I'm getting to know more about them. And, oh, I don't have to ask that question. Somebody else is asking it, telling me something already. That's a really generous thing to do, to say, let me tell you about me, and then I'm going to ask about you. Because if you think of the conversation like tennis, or now pickleball is the big rage, that you share asking questions and you share answering. Yes. So if each person takes a turn. So thinking of a way to make something pertinent, you know, when I talk to people that are in their area, say, gosh, how did you handle the unseasonably, we had such hot weather, you know, this is what I did. You know, I got a chance to go swimming finally, because I do not swim in our unheated pool unless there's an 8 at the beginning of the temperature. So look what they learned about me. They learned I swim. They learned I don't like cold water. They learned I'm a self-starter, that I go out and do that and take care of myself. Look at all if they're paying attention. And so then I get to hear what they did over the weekend. And that's been helpful to try to add more of that to the conversation.
Yeah. I was just thinking about, we did an episode not that long ago. We talked about things to talk about on a date. And in a way, this is different from that, because the date we talk about going deep in some of the really deep, and I'm not going to tell you about it. You have to go watch the episode, listen to the episode. So go find it. But in terms of on the apps, having questions that are not that hefty. So like, yes, what you did last weekend, what fascinates you about, what showed you, what recently, those sort of things can be telling enough to say, okay, now I want to meet this person in person. I want to meet this date in person, or a person on a date. So I can find out what they're really about, what they're really up to. So there's almost a progression that chatting the dating apps is a precursor to meeting them in person. So say maybe they're really good questions when you meet them in person to really have deeper conversations, versus when you're on the dating apps, you keep them more matter of fact, more day to day. And so there's a level of communication and a chatting there that can get you familiar with who they are and what they're about, because you might find out what they love about their work, or what they do for social times, or if they play sports, or whatever it is they do. That can be really informative before you get to the date. So there's ways using the dating apps and chatting in the apps that can really open your eyes and open yourself to what they're about, which can give you clarity on where you want to go further. Because again, in the dating apps, most people's profiles aren't really that descriptive of who they are. They really talk about what they like, and really simple stuff that is, 5 lines of description. You meet somebody who's more than 20 years old, there's a way more about that person than there is in 5 lines.
And that's such a good point, Barry. So when you say, gosh, what activities do you normally do on the weekend, or what activities do you do during the week? If that's important to you, that you have somebody that's as active as you, or the same kind of level, that's a really good question to ask in the beginning. Or if they've said something in their profile about things they do, gosh, how often do you do that? And wow, this guy was telling me how far he rides on his 37 miles on his bicycle. I was very impressed. He goes, that's not very much. I went, oh, okay. Sounds like a lot to me. So
Relative.
that's the kind, that's what he said. That the things that you really need to know, even to make the time to go meet somebody, make sure you've addressed it in this lighthearted way in your conversation while you're still in the apps. And then have a couple more that you're going to ask when you move to the phone, so that you save it, as you said, to have the more weighty conversation when you're in person. And then if something funny happened, you could tell them that, because now they'll know you have a sense of humor. Or maybe you find out you don't have the same sense of humor.
Yep.
You need to be careful for sure. But it's more surface, but not nothing. That's the hard transition to good morning, how did you sleep?
Yeah.
That's boring. But tell me something fun you did this weekend, and this is what I did. And if it was just house stuff, it felt really great, because there's times that just on a Sunday, that's what I do. And I go, and I did these 3 things, and I felt really good about doing it because now I'm ready for my week. What did you do?
And the thing about it that's really good is that you get to find out somebody's uniqueness, because you'll discover something somebody does, because most people don't do the same thing every weekend. And so you get to discover new things. You might even discover your own new hobbies you want to pursue. So even if you don't go out with them, maybe they've given you something you say, oh, I'm going to do that myself. So the benefits of the conversation could go far beyond just the possibility of meeting somebody. What could you learn from them? So the dating apps, again, they are really the first step, the beginner stage. They're the place you really build rapport. Then you decide if you want to pursue it to a further place, whether it could be phone call or a video chat or in person. And so the level of communication is important, as it sets the tone for where you want to go. And it can be good to set up the right way. So that sort of question, again, like you said, about how was your weekend or what do you do on the weekend, is not necessarily as important as like, what's your life mission, which you don't ask until you're on the date. So the app chatting level, like, it has its levels of what fits in the bucket of what you talk about when you're in the apps.
So the other thing that I found a lot of scammers do, and it's not fail-safe though, because it's not everybody, that they want to know, do you live in an apartment? Do you live in a house? Do you live with kids? Do you live with pets? So what I've learned to say is, I'll be happy to have that conversation, that information with you. I share that information with you when we're on the phone, because I don't assume that they're a scammer. It's very much what scammers say, but it's not 100%. So I've decided now I'm not answering that question anymore on the apps. I'm only answering it on a phone call. So I've been suggesting that to my clients, because it seems kind of innocuous in the beginning, and then I've turned out, in my head, I decided that's too personal. It's not something I'm going to share with them, because I don't want them knowing if I live alone with a cat. That doesn't seem appropriate to me. So I said, no, but I don't assume. That's the other thing. If they say something that you feel a little about, a little wondering, question, you can also say, I don't have that kind of a conversation till I meet you in person. It's the thing I say when I share my Google Voice number. I don't share any of my personal information till I'm sitting across the table from you.
Yeah.
And it's either okay or not. And if it's not okay, they're not my person.
Yes, we talked about boundaries before, and this is one of those things where you've got to remember that you don't have to spill the farm, give them everything, when you first have a conversation with them. Again, as I said earlier, it's like a lot of people seem to be, I want to say desperate, but certainly searching for love, wanting love, desiring love. And so the desire to give all the information right up front, even just in typing stuff in the app, is almost like, oh, I have to do that so I can make sure that they will like me and they want to be around me, which is actually the opposite of what's going to happen. So to really have boundaries, and as I said earlier, have like the buckets you put things in, like what information you share when you're typing, what information you share when you're talking on the phone, what information do you share when you're on date with them. It's important to have distinct understanding of what the value of those are, because if you overshare too early and they walk away, you feel bereft, you feel worn out, you feel used. And it's really your own responsibility. I was going to say fault, but your responsibility, because you gave more than you probably would want to do if you really spent the time getting to know this person in the first place. So gauge your progress based on how well you know this person.
And I've now added a third category to the desperate and lonely. It's naive. Think of the widowed people that were married forever, 30, 40, 50 plus years. They haven't dated since they were a teenager. This was not even in anybody's mind then.
Right.
So I really understand they don't know what they don't know. They don't know better. So for people that are listening, and as much as we can keep telling all of you, don't share personal information. And that's part of it, because they're like, oh, saying if I own my house and that I live alone, oh, I guess that is. And because they're thinking they're honest, they would never do anything with that information. So I really am adding naive.
Yeah.
Because they're not desperate or lonely, some of them. They're just very uneducated about this. And I think that's so sad and scary, because it leaves them open to having somebody really take advantage of them.
Yeah, there are some apps out there that are specifically marketed towards the older community. And I think they're prime targets for scammers. So even though those apps are designed for you, if you're one of those people in that category, don't presume everybody in the app is the same way, because there is an opportunity. It's almost like, well, so shooting fish in a barrel, but it's going to be opportunistic for people who join the app because they want to use that to scam. And they basically think, well, that's a great, fishing hole to go to grab lots of fish by scamming everybody. So whether it's an app that's tailored for your particular uniqueness, or it's a general app you're in, by having healthy boundaries and by choosing to only communicate to a certain point in the app, you preserve your sanctity and your ownership. But secondly, you kind of preserve the mystery as well, which is kind of fun. So again, if you tell everything up front, there's no mystery left. Where's the excitement? So by saving some of the good stuff, in fact, all the good stuff, until you do meet in person, makes it more entertaining and more exciting and more enticing for the person to seek you out and want to be with you. So using the apps as a stepping stone, not as the be all and end all, is the best way of doing the apps in the first place. And certainly with the way you chat on the apps, remember it's just a step in the direction you want to go in.
And the other thing that, when you're on the apps, is the only way you're going to leave the app is you're going to go to Google Voice. You're not going to go to WhatsApp. You're not going to go to Google Chat. You're not going to go to any of the others, because now they love saying WhatsApp because it's encrypted and nobody else can see. They still have access to your personal information. They'll see they have access to your personal phone number, which if they have that, they have everything. So that's why stay within the app. It's very protected, or use Google Voice because it's very protected until you set up a time that you're now actually going to now use the app to video chat, because you're staying in the app, or you're going to now feel comfortable about seeing them in person. Yeah. So don't leave, even though they go, well, don't you have Google Chat? And there's two things they've come up with lately that I hadn't even heard of before. No, none of those do you use. So that's the other thing I want you to be really, really careful about when you're on the apps, that you don't leave to go anywhere else.
And the thing about this is that somebody keeps asking you to change something you don't have. That's usually a red flag. It's usually a little warning sign that this person is a scammer, not a real person. If it is a real person, they need to learn how to do things the right way. And if it's a scammer, you don't want them around anyway. So having that self-mastery to really see for yourself and knows what's going on. When you're on the dating apps, remember that it could be somebody other than a regular human on the other end of this. So keep your wits about you. And when you're doing the apps and you chat on the apps, because the thing is also sometimes when you're on the apps, maybe you only get one person saying yes to you that you like and they like you back. So you can feel like, oh my God, it's like the only shot I've got. It's like, don't go there, because the truth is you don't know if it's the real person or not. So within the apps, again, healthy boundaries, be really aware of what's going on. It's tempting times to think that the app's going to be perfectly matching with somebody and it's up to the app to do it right, which it isn't. But the temptation is to think that they're going to do anything for you. And really it's up to you to do the work and to be that detective, to search and find out if this person really is who they say they are, and then how much you want to share with them. You know, if you were a detective on a cold case, I don't know, this story coming ahead, whatever. But basically the idea is, like, if you're a detective, you don't tell the suspect all of your answers until they give you what they need to tell you. So in a way, if you're going on dating apps, I don't know why that parallel came up. You can actually be more withholding and be more open to asking them questions. So they give you back what they know. And the truth is, it's that discovery, it's that investigation of each other. It's kind of fun. It's like just to go, it's like, well, what do you know about this? And what do I know about this? And how do you have that understanding? Because you build a deeper level of rapport that way, and a deeper level of intimacy. So the chat feature is a good stepping stone. Again, it's a good place to start, but you can use it for the best way to discover if you want to go any further, because being in the app and on the chat is the first level, but it also can be the last level for some people you don't want to connect with. So you can really discern what you choose and what you want.
I think it's a really good vetting tool if you use it specifically for that.
Yeah.
Don't get carried away when you're in the app. Move to the next level if you really think there's an interest in both directions. And then if you still have an interest, move to the next level, because generally, it's not 100%. There are scammers that really will meet you in person, but most of them will not move to the phone, or certainly not in person. So please do it with that pacing. So if this has intrigued you at all or inspired you to, gosh, I want to learn more, and I really didn't know what I was doing, I can now see that with all the information you have. Barry and I would be so happy to coach you if you are interested in cracking open that door to learn how to do this better. So as I said, the best way to reach me is to go to my website, www.theperfectcatch.com, go to the middle, schedule a complimentary call with me, or send me an email at Christine@theperfectcatch. When you're on that homepage of my website, you can also scroll to the bottom and go to all my social media links of Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Pinterest and YouTube and Twitter. Yeah. Good. You can also join my email list. You'll get repeats of our podcast and also information about other things that's going on in my professional life. And you can also download my book. If you go to the top, there's an ebook link that you just click on that and you can download the book. And all I ask is to hear what you thought about it. I'd love a review. Otherwise, I'm happy to give it to you for free. And Barry, tell people how to reach you.
Similar to Christine, again, as I have a website as well. So to recap, my website is barryselby.com. And also at the top of the screen, as I said before, there's one of three things. At the top of the screen, there's a link to get on my calendar. We can have a chat, as mentioned before. At the bottom of the screen is a link, is an opt-in to join my email list, where also I send out a weekly email with the replays of the show and everything I'm working on, other podcasts I get to be on, new offerings, new courses, professional things like that. In the middle of the screen is one of two quizzes I have. I have two quizzes, and the first one is on the homepage, which is your relationship readiness assessment, because with my work with clients, I'm always helping them get ready for relationships. So it's nice to know where they are and what they're looking for. So you can click on that button or go to barryselby.com/quiz, and I'll give you access to this quiz that basically really gives you some simple but really direct questions to give you answers to what you're looking for. So do the quiz, and that will give you an opportunity also, if you want to do that, afterwards to chat with me as well. The second quiz, which is not on my site directly, but you can go to it. Sorry, it's not on my site page, but you can go to it directly, which is barryselby.com/self-quiz. And it's called self-quiz because it is a self-relationship assessment. And that is a quiz that it goes in a lot deeper than the first quiz. It also has a PDF assigned to it as well. So if you do the self-quiz, you'll get a little downloadable workbook you can go through and really give some clues. But it's really to give you a self-reflection of where you are in your life in terms of relationship, what may be in the way, and what your relationship with yourself is really about. It's very powerful and very profound, and I highly recommend it. Also, my website is my book, which is, you can go to directly, you click on the navigation, or you go to barryselby.com/book. That's where you can get my book, which is on Amazon, as well as on you can do as an ebook download if you want. On that page as well is the AI generated audio review of my book, where it's two voices that sound really professional, describing my book in about a 12-minute conversation where they really discuss my book in detail. It's accurate, although there's a couple of glitches because they do that in AI, but most of the information in it is a reflection of my book exactly as it is. So if you want to get a preview or a sense of my book, listen to that first, then go buy the book. And also you can go to my social media to find me there. So my social media is my name on most places, which is Barry Selby on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Blue Sky and Pinterest. If you want to find me on Instagram or Threads, it's The Real Barry Selby. And I think that's everything.
You have fancy stuff.
I do what I can.
And we're here every week live on 4 o'clock Pacific and 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern, and all the times in between. So you can watch us live. And if you make comments, we will answer them on our live. And then you can also watch us if you want to watch us. Again, you can watch us on Roku, or you can watch us on YouTube on all of your devices or on your TV. But if you don't want to watch us and you just want to listen to it, then what do people do?
Well, the good news is our show is
faces.
Yeah, I know. They don't want to see us. What's wrong with you? No, but if you want to listen to the information without having to look at the phone because you may be, driving or riding your bike or shopping, whatever, You can listen to us on other podcast platforms because it's now recorded and played that way as well. So on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, on Amazon Podcast as well. We're on all the podcast platforms. So you can listen to us wherever you go, and you can binge listen to over 200 episodes. We're up to 230, I think it's 225, 230 episodes now, which will be definitely giving you some clear guidance and some next steps. So if you really want to know how to navigate relationships, we've got you.
We do. We've got you. And we'd love for you to review us and like us. And then if you know people that are also having questions about their dating and relationships, please share it with them, either on the audio or the video. And we'll be back again next week with another fun subject about dating and relationships.
We'll see you then. Take care of yourselves.
Bye for now.
Bye.